everybody. Welcome to today's show where I have a new snack friend. His name is Mr. Snack. My name is Magic Pokey. I'm playing DOS games today. And DOS games, I mean really old. This was going to say 1993, but it was actually made in the late 80s. This is just later. It's called Moraff World. Now, Steve Moraff, in the day, he mainly switched to doing Mahjong based games when he got started. But when he first started making games, he made roguelike adventure games with, oh boy, the graphics are indeed graphical. This game is DOS. This game is amazingly DOS. Like, it doesn't get any more DOS than that. Well, anyway, let's jump right in. Just be warned, this game is not pretty. Welcome to Moraff's World. That's right, if the graphics look like they were done in MS-DOS, that's because they actually were, or MS Paint. Well, whatever the DOS equivalent of MS Paint was back in the day, that's what Moraff's World was drawn in. And I love it. Also, Mr. Snake likes it. Hello, Mr. Snake. Yeah, this game is a roguelike. A roguelike is a dungeon-crawling adventure game where you can create a character. It's an RPG. You gain experience and can level up and such. And like most roguelikes, this game involves permanent death. If your character dies, it deletes the save file. Now, unlike most roguelikes, there is a way around that. You can purchase, and actually I think you start with, what's called a raise dead contract. So if your character dies and you have one of these contracts, you'll automatically be raised from the dead minus most of your gold and some experience at a temple in the top level of the dungeon, which is called the town. These contracts get super expensive, but they're actually really cool. Now, like, the first one is free, the second one costs, most of your gold, and then I think they get exponentially more expensive after that. I think after like 4 or 5 of them, it costs more gold than the game is capable of remembering that you have. So, like, it reaches memory overflow levels of expensive. Also, I've got my drink. If you ever find me without Dr. Pepper, something has gone horribly wrong. So I've got the drink. I've got the game. Let's start the stream. Okay, so, yes, this game does have mouse support, and the mouse support is as fugly as it looks. So I'll be using the mouse support very sparingly. This game also does feature sound, unlike a lot of the older DOS games, but it does PC bleeper speakers, which I hope I have right. So I'm going to start a new character on character 0 here. Creating a character. Different characters have different capabilities. If this is your first time playing, you should probably select the race Ogre and the class Fighter. Ogre fighters tend to be easier to keep alive. When the computer assigns your characteristics, you will have the option of keeping those numbers or trying again. You may keep trying as long as you like. A high strength of 25 or 30 helps a lot in the beginning of the game. Advanced players will find many interesting combinations such as imp worshippers, ogre monks, human mages, etc. Each one offers its own special challenges and advantages. Hit any key to create your own character. Something you'll notice right away is this game lies to you. Certain things are supposed to be in the game and just were like never programmed in or weren't programmed correctly, and they didn't bother changing the text. So, yay, DOS! Okay. Race selection. Hitting a number to 1 and 8. I'm going to not use the mouse for this. Let's see. Humans, elves, dwarves, hobbits. Gee, I wonder where that came from. Gnomes, ogres, sprites, and imps. Now, gameplay-wise, we'll talk about stats in a minute. Gameplay-wise, the only thing that the race choice affects is your viewpoint in the dungeon. Because unlike tile-based roguelikes or ASCII graphic roguelikes, Moraff's World is fully 3D graphical. And it's almost nauseating. So, let's see. I want to play a magical character because magic is almost impossible to play without, and in fact is probably one of the most important things in the game. So that leaves out most ogres because you need high intelligence for magic. I also want high luck because luck is how you find items. The higher your luck score is, I forget what the actual formula is, but basically every time you defeat a monster, you roll on the table for treasures. And you roll like, it's like a d20, and then it's like, if you get a 1, a 2, or a 3, you get a rare treasure. If you get a 5 through a 10, you get a basic treasure. If you get an 11 through 20, you get nothing. Or it's different for each monster, and the numbers get better the lower you go in the dungeon, which is 250 plus levels deep, by the way. But basically, the higher your luck stat, the more rolls you get on that table, and the more chances you get for treasure. So a character with an absurdly high luck would get 3 or 4 treasures per monster killed, whereas a character with low luck will only get 1, maybe 2 if they're really, really lucky, if RNG comes out in your favor. So the high, I want to start with at least a 24 luck. Well, I guess 23. So the highest it comes to, we're going to be looking at... humans have 22, so that's not going to be good enough. Hobbits have 23 luck. Sprites have 28. So it looks like I want to be a sprite, a hobbit, a human, or possibly a gnome, an elf, or an imp. I guess I'm not going to be a dwarf or a ogre. Now, since I want to be a magical character, and I'm going to go with an intelligence-based magical character rather than wisdom, like most D&D, mages and wizards use intelligence for their spellcasting stat, whereas sages, monks, and priests use wisdom. Like a lot of RPGs of the era, I'm going to go for a higher intelligence and a lower wisdom. Let's see. So the sprite has an intelligence of 25 and pretty low wisdom, but he's only got a strength of 14, which is going to make the early game very difficult because in the early game, most of the monsters you fight have to be fought hand to hand. The gnome is a little better off. Intelligence 24 and a strength of 16. The hobbit might be my best choice here, but I want to go with the sprite because I want the absurdly high luck stat. So, here it randomly rolls my stats. I've got a strength of 19, which is good. Oh, the strengths that it showed on that previous screen were part of the lies, because that's just a baseline. Remember, what's the first rule of Moraff's World? Moraff's World lies to you. Okay. Luck is 26. Wisdom is higher than intelligence, so I'm not keeping this character. Basically, what I'm looking for is a strength of at least 17, an intelligence of at least 25, and a luck of at least 25. After that, everything else is gravy. Constitution is how many hit points you have and how much damage reduction happens. So if a monster might do 5 points of damage, but you have 10 points of Constitution, it'll only do 4 points of damage. Now, there's a minimum number of damage any attack can do, so that's not going to you're never going to be invulnerable. Agility is how good you are at dodging attacks when you're in combat, and also how fast you are when you're getting away from monsters. Now, this game is turn-based, so a higher agility when you reach a certain breakpoint will give you, like, you can move twice before the monster moves. It also affects how fast you attack. No, I'm definitely rolling a new character. Strength of 21. Intelligence, no, 20. Nope, it's too low. Okay, now here's a good guy. He's 25 inches tall, so he's, almost 2 feet. He's a little over 2 feet tall. He weighs 18 pounds and he's 48 years old. Strength of 14, which is lower than I would like, but strength is not that important for the character I'm planning on creating. Intelligence is 27, which is higher than the 25 minimum I wanted. I would have preferred in the 30s, but hey, this is fine. This is the number. Intelligence for INT casters and wisdom for WIS casters affects how many spell points you have, and in certain spells, like a very few spells have a range of numbers that it does, it will affect how powerful the spell is. Most spells just multiply the spell by your level, your character level, and do it that way. His intelligence is 27, which is good. Wisdom is 21, which is not really necessary. Constitution is 17, a little lower than I'd like, but then again, I'm playing a small character. Agility is 19, which is actually a little bit higher than I was expecting, so that's good. And then the luck is 29. Now, that's awesome, because I want at least a 25 luck. I'd love a 30, but I don't think I'm going to go that high. At least not to start. Now, if I'm going to keep this character. You can design your own character, which will drop it back down to, I think it takes like 10 away from everything unless you rebuild it, but I'm not going to do that this time. I actually like the stat distribution. So I will keep this character. Please type your name. Okay, my name is going to be Magic Pokey. Press enter. Please select a class. Okay. Fighters are simple to play, can use many weapons, no spells, and very little magic. Should have high strength, agility, and constitution. All of that is true. When it says many weapons, what fighters mean is all weapons. There's literally no weapon that a fighter cannot equip, or armor. That's very powerful. The problem is magic. For the first 20 levels of the game, you'll be fine as a fighter. Walking around, smacking stuff, gaining experience, it's all good. Later on, though, you'll find enemies that scale upwards faster than your battle power does. So you get fighting enemies that do more damage than you deeper in the dungeon you go. It's possible to grind up levels and on easier dungeon levels to grind up experience and fight these things, but the curve is to the point where it would take forever. And also without access to magic, because no spells, fighter doesn't get any spells at all. The only way, it can't use magic wands, can't use magical items unless it's a passive item, and can only use magic paper, which is like a scroll, which is like a one-time use. Fighters can only use magic papers, which are very hard to find, and you need certain spells. Especially later in the game, you'll need spells like Cure Poison and Cure Disease, because those can kill you. You'll also have Resist Level Drain. There are certain enemies that when they hit you, 100% of the time, drop you down an entire experience level. Doesn't matter how much experience you have, doesn't matter how close you are to the next level or how much you've gained, you drop down one entire experience level every time they hit you. If you have Resist Level Drain active, it's only every like 3 or 4 times that they hit you. It's difficult. Which is why spells that do a ton of damage are very useful for killing those level drainers. Now, those level draining monsters are worth more. They give more experience. They give better loot. But they're also much, much harder to kill, and they can erase hours of progress in one combat. So you don't want to play as a fighter. Worshipper, very poor fighter, can cast many priestly spells. Interesting to play, but requires a peaceful attitude. Now, a worshipper is a combination of a fighter and a priest. He does all the priestly spells, because there's 2 types of spells in the game: wizard spells and priest spells. He gets priestly spells, but he's just not. He's like not as good of a fighter as he could be, and not as good of a priest as he could be, and neither one of those makes up for the deficiencies in the other. Monk doesn't use weapons, can't keep any items, magic or not, deadly with hands, and has the ability to cast spells without spellbooks. Now, monks are interesting. They start with the access to every spell in the game from the get-go, but they can't use weapons, they can't wear armor, and they can't keep any items. And some items are extremely useful, like Rings of Regeneration or Stones of Seeing, which map the whole level for you, because every level's a maze. Monks are good for advanced players, but not good for beginners. I'm not going to do a monk today. Wizard doesn't fight well, but gets more spells than any other class, because you don't start with your spells and you don't buy them. You find them as loot from monsters. You have to find spell books. Should have very high intelligence, good for advanced players. A priest is basically the wizard, but for wisdom stat characters. Although a priest is a better fighter than a wizard laid out. In a physical, you'd probably beat a wizard any day of the week. Your class just does how much damage you do. It affects your accuracy and how much you can carry. A sage. Poor fighter, poor spellcaster, good for exploring without being noticed. Gains experience just for exploring, needs high agility. This class must be played very carefully, not for beginners. That is a straight lie. Sages are absolutely useless. They're basically shitty mages. Mage is a combination fighter and wizard, and I apologize for cursing. I'll try not to do that. A sage is just a crappy mage. It doesn't do well, and the whole gaining experience for exploring doesn't actually happen. I don't know if it was never programmed or if it doesn't work right or what, but it just doesn't work. So, and funnily enough, the documentation, the help files built into the game itself will actually say that sages don't actually gain experience for exploring. So, I mean, what can you do? And then mage, combination of fighter and wizard, very hard to start, but very powerful later, needs well-balanced characteristics. I'm debating between a wizard and a mage. Mages get very, very powerful, but they'll eventually rely on wizard spells anyway, and I'm going to be playing it kind of safe, so I'm going to go with a wizard here. A mage is a combination of a fighter and a wizard, but he doesn't have access to all the weapons. So I am a wizard, so I have 10 spell points and 46 health points. And now the game itself. So first of all, I'm going to do something that I always do with this game and hide the mouse cursor, because everything it touches is highlighted in that awful glowing thing. Turn the sound on. Hide the mouse cursor way over there. Okay, so here is the actual game screen. The views in order are north, south, west, and east and west. You're always facing north unless otherwise specified, but that only matters in combat when there's 2 or more monsters on the screen. And say you've got a monster in the north and a monster in the east, you can press the arrow key to face that monster, and it'll say up in the top corner, you are now fighting, armored fighter in the north view or whatever. You can expand a view by, hitting certain buttons and things like that. You can also, here's the menu. You can change the bricks, which changes the brick layout, which is kind of cool looking, I think. Different graphics options, basically. I like it this way. This is the most detail. You don't get access to this in the earlier in the less intense of the game. When the game starts, you get a menu that says choose your graphics card. This is 256 color graphics. Hold on one quick second. I need to go on a quick break because I just got an error message on my computer. I apologize. So, 1 second. sure what's happening. I'm going to have to take the stream offline for a second, and I'll be right back. Sorry about that.